Miskito Indians of eastern Nicaragua once lived in blessed tranquility. Though poor and humble, they were content with their simple lives of subsistence farming and fishing. Food was abundant. Able to take care of most of their needs, they ignored the rest of the world, and in turn, the modern world hardly noticed them. They had difficulties, but they preserved their cultural heritage, and they were at peace. My name is Lee Shapiro. I filmed these scenes in certain villages of eastern Nicaragua during a secret trip there in the fall of 1984. For this brief period, these villagers are under the protection of Miskito warriors and are attempting to resume their normal daily activities. For the past 4 years, they have endured periodic attacks by Sandinista soldiers. The protection they have is fleeting. These people don't have much time before they will be attacked again by the Sandinista army. I don't know how many of these people are still alive or free, but for a short time, they could almost return to the halcyon way of life they once knew. The Miskito Indians are an endangered race. Persecution by the Sandinistas has brought great misery to these people and is forcing them from their beloved homeland of Nicaragua. They've left everything behind as they flee into the uncertain life of a refugee in a foreign country. Nicaragua has been their home since long before their ancestors greeted Christopher Columbus. Nothing has ever forced them out. From the time of the Spanish conquistadors, who they successfully repelled, through the dictatorship of Somoza, they have remained. Now they are fleeing by the thousands. 1/4 of the 115,000 Atlantic Coast Indians now live as refugees. The Coco River flows between Nicaragua and Honduras. Once along the banks of this river, there were many thriving, vibrant Miskito communities. Today there are none. 49 villages along the Coco River, like this one of Waspam, were burned to the ground. These are the remains of people's homes, a school, and a church, in what was once the village of Pranza. It is no longer recognizable as a community where over 1,000 people lived and worked. Sandinista terror has come down hard on the churches. Look at the church in what used to be the town of Huehuenac.
Here we can see that they began to burn the church. This was a Catholic church called the Sacred Family, a traditional church made by us with the sacrifice and sweat of the people.
While their homes and churches burned, 10,000 Miskito men, women, and children were forced to march for 15 days through the jungles to army-run concentration camps. Many speak of the brutality of these forced marches.
About 600 people behind them making them swim across the river. Yes, and one woman was a bought child, you know, and she bought the child right there and catch the little child, and they cut out the navel right there with a machete and cut off the little child neck and throw it in the river and obligate their mother to jump in the river and swim across.
The mother had just given birth?
Just given birth, yes.
Alvaro Rivera managed to escape across the Coco River. Now he's a refugee in Honduras. He came back to show us what is left of his home in Tulimbile, Nicaragua. Where were you when this happened?
I was on the other side of the river, on the Honduras side, witnessing everything that was happening. When the town was burning, bombs exploded, AKs were firing. They burnt the town. It was an incredible fire, like they were burning the whole mountain.
He also said what many others continually say, that the incapacitated, such as old men and pregnant women, were locked in the houses and burned.
When the Sandinistas came, I was pastor here. This used to be my church. The Sandinistas used to come here and abuse the people, so many of us escaped across the river. One day the Sandinistas brought some people from another village down the river here. The pregnant women and the old men who couldn't walk any further were tied in the church and burned. I was across the river at that time and waited until the Sandinistas left. Afterwards, I came back and saw the ashes of people here. There were 4 people that were found by the tree over there. This is what we saw.
How are the people killed?
They were hanged by the neck and the bodies were thrown by the tree. The others were burnt in the church.
The ruins of this once productive building are now a Sandinista army post. Standing across the river from where Lemus used to be, young Vidal Provedas told us how he barely escaped death. What happened here?
The Sandinistas started to kill people. 7 of them were killed over there. Some were in jail in that place, and then they were buried alive under the tree over there. I was in the last group. They put us on top of a barge, and they opened fire with the machine guns. I got shot in my arm, and I fell in the river. Then I swam across the river. It was midnight when I crossed the river to Honduras. At the same time, they killed 2 of my brothers there in Lemos. 35 were buried alive. In all, there were 75 killed.
The Sandinistas say that they relocated the Miskitos to protect them from the counter-revolutionary activity of the Somocistas. Here's Father John Samsa, a Capuchin priest who worked with the Miskitos for 15 years and was in the area during the time of the relocations.
The Sandinistas themselves, by not understanding the Indian and by underestimating them, committed many errors, and they created a hostile people. And therefore, they themselves were forced to make this move, to forcibly move the Indians off the river to save their own skin. Not because the Indians were in any danger from Somocista counter-revolutionaries that were attacking them and killing them off. I was in the area. There was no guerrilla activity or counter-revolutionary activity in the area, and nobody was bothering or was going to harm the Indians. But you can see what happened. They had a whole belt of the 150 miles of river of people that they couldn't trust, and they could see in the future this was going to cause them problems. So they forcibly moved them off to save their own skins and not for the protection or good of the Indians. And it was also part of the motive, I would suspect, was to break up their organization and to get them in a controlled situation so they could no longer cause them any difficulty. And in that movement, many of their leaders escaped. It was only then that the Indians turned against the Sandinistas and decided to take up arms. And I guess no one wants to approve of violence or fighting or taking up arms, but I think I'll go to bat for the Indians and consider them as freedom fighters and have a right to try to get their lands back, lands where their ancestors are buried. And that's the way I see it.
These Miskito warriors took me on a clandestine trip to communities in eastern Nicaragua that the Sandinistas have declared off limits. When I filmed these scenes, the communities were expecting to be relocated as soon as the camps were ready. This village is enjoying a brief time of freedom under the protection of the mosquito guerrillas, which is why I could bring my camera in. However, the Sandinista military is a constant threat and the people are technically under martial law. The mosquito guerrillas ask the people about their situation.
Baraman lagi kau lama metor kan nusma dia palipat kamba lagi kay kau na kan wilba ko mit nusma. Sandis tawanak kime menuhon manera.
Buksa di man, sa ki kurat ba biti te barba, sing de we. Jangan dia tuk tanda haki beri kana.
Maka itna ta mior ka mulpi sa.
Na bana kawanyan na me biti tut beri kawan. Balu pet na her kumbre.
Walras wis banan. Yara apu in walras. Pakaya bisendane. Walras.
It's no wonder that during the brief periods that the mosquito guerrillas are able to give protection to their villages in Nicaragua, the people are happy to welcome them.
Japanese like banana, Japanese like banana, oh banana, banana, banana water, banana, Cuban like it, banana, Russian like it, banana, Mexican like it, banana, oh banana, banana, Suiza like it, banana, Draco like it, banana, oh banana, banana, banana water, banana, green banana, banana, ripe banana, banana, full banana, banana, oh banana, banana, banana water, banana, Brazil like it, banana, Canadian like it, banana, oh banana, banana, banana water, banana, banana.
However, their freedom is often short-lived.
Well, Sandinista na ni bal na place ba brin. Para well, same time white na wal lakunda yawi kan alkan bara baha white ni kawal sika. Bayonet ni pasabanan kauraya kan bersal angkan. Bahawin na plapan lay place wala bukra twi saitra.
Yang na yun tala, plapitaw ki bahan, mga imanan plapi bahan itam na last trip, same na uniswala. Untala kati yung papresyang na ni trabil takil na ha, kauka na raski brehon tabiarara, bakat pluna po, bakat yung na ni sala liwi na breno po, bakat yung na ni kapilap ta kay kras. Plun pira siyang na ni yuyu.
Daywan saura, daywan pansina kaya daywan saura na lini na ni.
Bahatem si kanat. Bahatem.
Yabar di kaman baram na pasok.
Platuk tanay lalbay na ni ba? Tihimera kak na raban lisam ratilak plapiya ka. Doria ba kituktan sirpilo pe na apliura pruan na bate. Bahatay mani wala bahadaw kan tayong babako kan baby na ni apliura pruan doria ba ko. Unta ratila piuta sa mihikan kanunta beraan iyanig bibi na ni bahimukan.
27 innocent people died from sickness and starvation during this period.
Tawan na.
Sabi ka bom lol ka. Bom tara wal ba tawan na.
Baha tawan na bumulol ki britaw kasi nanara. Nata ni bara sa insla da kuri kanane. Baha da kuri ka bani raw itinane bumune kan. Awala una uya ba sut bumune bantaw ka kanupla bani ra kiki ka.
This crater, which looks like a pond, was created during that bombing raid. 11 civilians died in the bombings. In all, 65 bombs fell on 6 villages in 11 days. During the interview, the old man thought he heard an airplane and became frightened.
Permiso yan nahara bala. Barawel balan time, diara po queer po bipa po witina ni sutpin. Nai wakat kay gram bip kumya po kalila baman walwal na narasa. Queer po. Gocha po.
The people now cut the grass with machetes. Before, The cows and goats kept the grass short.
Sari manas kan. Baha wina wachina ni bari nara kan piora. Upla bibka iki pi. Ada rapo. Pia. Ron, dia wan kuku nani. Dia kelakaya. Bika kuku kelakan tronko nani barake. Kai kisma pia. Kuku tronko kaba. Put masin upla umpila nani put masin breakan so liti kawe.
Bal plapi bang si balu le bang te masin pali nani katalata alul kan prawi kan baik.
The broken sewing machines are now good for nothing except anchors.
Yang nani mayri nani timi abui baha plapi bang ritem. Ya nani diko nani plate nani coil kalope nani shelten tila siso ina bridas ka pribalan. Dia ra kumi apo.
When the people returned, they found their houses empty. The Sandinistas had taken their tools, pots and pans, plates, and even their mattresses. Some houses were purposely demolished.
Maestro, tuktan scolding kan onka ta tools kanane. Chosta ke latara mani yakabe pautang ki ban.
Di ka Bible na ni bare kan basot kalki tay litra basa kuchi ni ay tatadiki akabikan. Maha. Dia ba ko kan batem balon haun taunan laskinan ba Bible ba man ay tatadiki ba man kan.
Ay sisa o takras ko na ba ko story takisa. Upla na ne balmeta wilke diesel ne laiki bara pauta ne angki kayo so.
Yang dai dog be kan ba ko man manas daw kan na ako ya sa
Diesel bari bala isa upla ba wel ki mone lalu ina laiki bara diesel bang ka upla ba raya melu kai hala kai basika kasak saura pale ngad apu preska pale ba upla nan dia pale tawan kan utina ne upla ya wan upla iko kisemba ko sa.
The Sandinistas did return on February 12, 1985. They destroyed many of the villages in the area to force the people to relocate to a newly constructed camp. People like these, whom I had made friends with, who invited me into their humble homes and shared with me what little they had. Now they're hiding again in the mountains, without food, unless they've been captured by the Sandinistas and herded into army relocation camps. Many may be dead. The roots of the conflict between the Miskito Indians and the Sandinistas go back to the 1930s, to the time of Sandino, whose name the modern revolutionaries took. To many Nicaraguans, including those who are fighting against the present-day Sandinistas, he is a great hero, even a saint, because he fought for national independence against the U.S. Marines. However, the Miskitos have a different image of him due to the harsh treatment they suffered at the hands of some of Sandino's men. This man is demonstrating how people were executed by the notorious Corte de Cumbo. The victim's head was tied with a wire. Then the top of the head was severed with a machete, leaving the base of the brain exposed. Death took long minutes, during which the victim usually spun around helpless, like a headless chicken. Like many other Miskitos, therefore, he fought with the Marines against Sandino. He was a scout, or, as he says, a detective.
Marines detective. I can blikan bara utlanira Sandinista Camp Baraba Kaiki Municipal report mone tut nikan baha camp kara.
After one battle while pursuing the retreating Sandinistas, he says he came upon a body he recognized as Sandino's own wife. He buried her, then went back to his camp to write a song about her beauty and love for Sandino. He remembers it even now, 50 years later.
Santa Elena irangoninia, y blanca y común hasmi, pobrecita mantenía solo cosiendo ropa para el madre. Le dijo, hermana infame, La orilla de mar entera de tristeza, herida y afligida. Y mano a mano yo te quiero, aquí está mi vida por un amor. Me venda, me venda, me venda, se va con valor. Me venda en el nido, me venda, se va con balazo. Das the song for the Sandino wife that he died.
The Miskitos have a strong sense of community life centered around the church, usually the Moravian church. Moral values and attitudes are instilled at a very young age. The words of this song mean, give your hand to your brother, give your hand. Welcome him, and a brother you will be. Now, with the Sandinistas in power, very different values are being imposed on these young Miskito children.
Finally, because they couldn't control the organization, they couldn't make them Sandinistas and have their own leaders in, the Indians wouldn't let go, they finally took away their school teachers, and this was a grave mistake. As I mentioned, they were well prepared and trained, and they had many of their own school teachers. In all the villages, they had Miskito teachers. So then they took away their school teachers and put in Cuban teachers.
After 50 years, Sandino lives. These words must be written before every lesson by these Miskito school children. If a student fails to write these words, he fails the lesson. The school lessons themselves are often blatant exercises in Marxist indoctrination. Lesson 1 is on struggle. This lesson teaches that a real woman fights with arms. Here, the child is the pet of the revolution. Even math concepts are illustrated by machine guns and hand grenades. While civilians suffer, Miskito resistance trains rigorously in secret Nicaraguan mountain bases. The Sandinistas can't find these bases, so they attack and try to control the only mosquitoes they can catch, the villagers. This young man had just escaped from jail when he came to the secret mountain base to join the Miskito guerrillas one day before I talked to him.
If you don't have this ID card, you're considered a contra. As a result, they will put you in jail for 30 years. We always have to carry this card. In addition, without this card, we don't get food. No food. They limit you to 2 pounds of sugar or rice, even if you have this card. And even if you have this card, you're still in danger of going to jail if they suspect you.
Others can't join the resistance, but are able to escape from their military-controlled villages, usually at the risk of their lives. This woman was shot by the Sandinistas while escaping from the military-controlled village of Wisconsin.
Went in here, came out with it.
Yang nani Nicaragua bilara, yang nani pain kapre lilia, ibi kapre diara sudba pain kapre kuna Sandinista nani bara, balan taimba yang nani uva trabil kitara, yang nani ra uva saura aimuni, plun sin pia ya taima po yang nani untara sakaya. Ada rapo bara plun bla bara baha mita yang na nalmo kumpira na ni naha price na ako taka yapia ay munikan kawai si wam na si ay munikan bara yang luki kaiki moni uba sibris na plun bla witin Sandinista bila manani apo maiki tikam na walpa dos katman kabia win time yang naako ka na ha. Aray, yang bahakat, yang mahka plapre, yang from na will ban try plapre. Plapre, plor ki munong, will na, plor ki munong tara, et barakan. Bahana ni, bitina ni baharay wakikan yang tawa taki plapre time bitin yang ray saban na ha. Ay saban ko na yang takas karas, nahak witin takan, ko na yang ban plapi kapre.
This 65-year-old woman just arrived in Honduras after escaping from a Sandinista forced relocation camp. The scars on her legs testify to the hardship of her 27-day ordeal in the jungles.
Sandinista ko piyang nanipaki ba? Yang nani wahamakumi si paiwat lariuras sud pa pauno na militar na dimay. Ay klabaya because itinanibilaw sa Miskito kiam kabadah munayabar. Ang porgi kara diara wala bayawan upla kumalun sa ban sirpi kum kakapat bawi plantinista rawi wisuya. Mahaupli ka na ni kontra walsa because upla wal ko pemria sa kan sirpi kumbria si papya. Mi vinaupli ka na niya malkay kras ka masin ko na bana ni kontra walsa win ka ka. Pad bahauplan ni priya sila karabriwaya. Mani wal mani pakabiasinan wipi pruki van plun sanglang sam pruisa sam rawisa.
This woman refugee with 6 children hasn't seen her husband for 2 years. He was a preacher and therefore easy prey for informers since preachers are often accused by the Sandinistas of brainwashing the people.
Takiwan ba Julio kate 12 piwa babrih takiwan ba winayang mawan pis kasin kay kras yang manawaip yang manawara 1 month and 1 week bara kapre kunayang manawa rataw ki kapre ba yang pliki sakras kapre nared baha winayang bilwi rataw kapre balik ka ba wala baha rataw ki kapre balik ka wil kasi 3 month pure pliki kapre sakras kapre dawan ba man likanu sa anir abriba naiwa mani wal
Those who escape to Honduras are lucky to be alive and free.
llama. El Espíritu Santo, el Espíritu Santo, el Espíritu Santo sobrepasa el amor.
However, like all refugees, they face malnutrition and disease.
Pues es un caso que vemos de típico aquí entre los.
This is a typical case of malnutrition among the refugees. We call this malnutrition in utero because apparently the baby was born in the 8th month of the gestation period.
Pero de todas formas, un niño de 8 meses de gestación.
In any case, a child born in the 8th month is usually normal, with a weight that could be considered normal. The one we see here is definitely abnormal in every respect. The arms, the legs, from malnutrition, severe malnutrition. The problem comes from the mother, because she had inadequate nutrition. Nutrition is very important for pregnant women. For example, there are a great number of miscarriages caused by maternal malnutrition.
The suffering reaches all age levels, and it's not only the humans who suffer. Many refugees have absolutely no clothes, and those that do have clothes so ragged that they're practically naked. Children have been without schooling for up to 4 years, not for lack of Miskito teachers, but for lack of materials. As refugees in Honduras, the Miskitos, who are by tradition farmers, find circumstances much different from Nicaragua. Honduras has generously given them land, but it is simply not as fertile as the land they left in Nicaragua. This refugee family is just returning to Honduras. They walked from the refugee camp for 2 days and slipped across the river into Nicaragua to find food. Although ACNUR, the UN relief agency, provides some help, it's not enough. Why did you walk all this way to find food?
ACNUR gives us food, but not very much, just a small amount. The food does not last very long, and we have kids, so we have to look for another way to get food.
Have the Sandinistas ever caught you sneaking into Nicaragua?
Not yet, but maybe someday they will.
Loaded down by their supplies, they must now make the 2-day trip back to the refugee camp. Since the Miskitos are a very religious people, many refugees get up at 4 in the morning to pray to God for help in returning to a free Nicaragua.
I know that a great many people today talk about Nicaragua with tears in their eyes. Now we're here like slaves. But we must ask God to free Nicaragua and give it back to us.
For the Miskito, Nicaragua is the promised land. They see the war to liberate their people as righteous. They frequently ask God for guidance. These soldiers are on their way to the occupied village of Francia Sirpe, where 200 Sandinista soldiers keep constant watch over the Miskito people. I went with them and became a witness to an international incident in which a bishop and a priest felt that they narrowly escaped assassination by the Sandinistas.
Hallelujah.
Stedman Fagot is the leader of the Missouri Miskito guerrillas. During the revolution, he fought on the side of the Sandinistas. However, when he saw how the Sandinistas were treating the Indians, he spoke out. For this, he was arrested, but managed to escape.
I remember a picture from a book that I saw when I was small. A child that was only this tall, but he had such an incredibly big tummy. I never saw anything like it before. Like if I told my tummy to expand to this size. When you take a step, your foot always goes ahead of you. But with this child, it was like the belly always stays ahead of the foot. I saw a picture of it. Every time I remember this picture, I laugh till I cry. Have you been to the refugee camps? Were they full? They are full of this same thing, swollen bellies. If we can make this sacrifice now, I think we won't see this kind of thing again. But if we hold back, there will be lots of sadness. It will always be the same thing for our people.
The Mosquito resistance operates from permanent bases deep in the jungles of Nicaragua. They're heavily outnumbered and under-equipped. Their only advantage is that they know these jungles so well that when the Sandinistas dare to risk combat here, they suffer heavy casualties. As Napoleon said, an army marches on its stomach. When community support is removed, the jungle provides food. Some of these guerrillas have been here for 2 years, and the jungle has taught them many things. They've learned to be tough and to survive under any conditions.
I am an ex-member of what they call the famous Sandinista People's Army. I'm here for many reasons. I took part in the war in 1979. When we won the war, the Sandinistas sent me to Cuba for training. I was there for 6 months, but at that time, there was a problem. The Miskito leaders, Stedman Fagot and Brooklyn Rivera, were in prison. In other words, the Miskito revolt had already started on the Atlantic coast. They intended to send us to fight against our own Miskito people, but I refused. When we arrived in Managua, the situation seemed to be really strange. I had to desert, and I went to Honduras. I arrived in Puerto Lempira, Honduras, and found them. At that time, there was nothing to eat. The only thing we could find was mangoes. So we sat under the mango trees, eating mangoes, since there was nothing else. So with all the suffering we had to endure in Puerto Lempira, 75 of us still organized and decided to go toward the Coco River and cross into Nicaragua and look for some way to fight the Sandinista army. Whether it be with knives, arrows, or whatever we could use to kill a Sandinista. To look for a way to recover a gun and to gather forces and consolidate. I entered with 4 men, and from there we began to multiply. We told the young people that we had come to fight for our rights, and that if we stood there with our arms folded, everyone would be in the same situation. So, since they were already aware of the dirty work that the Sandinistas were doing, they joined us and we began to train. The civilian population also gave us help. They preferred for us to be okay, even if they suffered.
The greatest strength the Mosquito warriors have is the Mosquito people themselves. The people provide the warriors with what little food they can and an enormous amount of moral support. This man is risking his life by bringing food to the jungle to give to the guerrillas. Only 30 minutes away is a Sandinista base. If he is caught, he will be killed or at least jailed for 30 years and tortured as a Contra. The same is true of this man. These fishermen have been observing the movements of Sandinista patrol boats and are bringing us an intelligence report. We'll wait, hidden by these mangroves until it is safe to advance. The mosquitoes are by nature joyful people. During these past days, we've often gone without food, but even under the most difficult conditions, the warriors' morale remains high. How old are you?
14.
Why are you fighting?
My grandparents are here in Nicaragua. I'm fighting so that they can be free and live like people.
Who is beside you?
My mother.
Why are you fighting?
Because my brother was killed. Since then, I had it in my mind to come and join this group. So today, by God's help, I am here with them. I will fight until the last drop of my blood is shed.
Who is beside you?
The young fellow beside me is my nephew, the son of my brother, who was killed.
This young guerrilla is a Sumo Indian. Sumo and Rama Indians, as well as Creoles, fight alongside the Mosquitos. Under threat of death or jail, he was conscripted into the Sandinista military.
They didn't train us Indians at all. They just wanted to send us into combat. They didn't show us how to use the ammunition or the guns. They took us from Puerto Cabezas with the troops. I didn't like it because I wasn't trained to do anything. I ran away from the troops.
How are you now?
I'm happy because I met other Indians. I'm determined to fight to the end.
Many are determined to fight on no matter what. Here, Faggot is responding to a statement by presidential candidate Walter Mondale that if elected, he would tie the hands of the anti-Sandinista guerrillas.
Saquen un comunicado diciendo Walter Mondale que nuestra guerra con Estados Unidos, sin Estados Unidos, con la tropa yanqui, sin la tropa yanqui, lo vamos a llevar a cabo y que se deje de babosada, que la lucha por nuestra subsistencia, por nuestra dignidad, lo vamos a llevar hasta las últimas consecuencias, cueste lo que cueste, independientemente y aparte todo interés foráneo de los Estados Unidos y de los mismos imperios soviéticos. Cambio. Es correcto, sáquelo, si aquí en este patio no se puede, sáquelo donde se pueda, pero hay que sacarlo al término de la distancia. Así es que no habiendo otra cosa más, cambio y fuera y hasta la próxima, compañero Rojas.
I came to Nicaragua in a small supply boat with Miskito soldiers. Supply trips are made at night, but now day is breaking and we must watch out for the Sandinista patrol boats. I had expected to be in Nicaragua for 2 weeks. It's now more than 7 weeks, and I'm still waiting for a supply boat to return and pick me up. The soldiers themselves are desperate for supplies. They lack even the most basic equipment. Because of the condition of these boots, guerrillas will often become incapacitated even before getting to combat. Some have to use rubber boots rather than go barefoot, and even these are hard to get. They are also in need of medicine. Here in the jungles of Nicaragua, there is no way of getting help until a supply boat comes. This young man will lose his leg. After 8 weeks inside, I managed to leave Nicaragua with several wounded guerrillas. I'll never forget the warmth and hospitality of the Miskito people. Guerrillas and civilians are fighting together for freedom and even survival. The nature of their struggle can be seen in the operation at Francia Serpi, which took place in December of 1983. Father Wendelin Schaefer was there. He and Bishop Schlafer were reported by the Sandinistas to have been killed by the Mosquito Contras. This story was spread by the international press. Here is Father Schaefer's first-hand account of what actually happened.
Sunday we went to Francia Sirpi on a routine, we went to the Tronquera first, and then from there we went to Francia Sirpi. And we spent a very fruitful day there. We had Mass with the people and heard their confessions and sang with them, and finally went to bed.
At that same time, I was with about 100 Mosquito guerrillas who were making final preparations to engage the 200 Sandinistas occupying Francia Sirpe. We had walked for 5 days through thick jungle.
Aumentar como tienen la retaguardia y sigue la otra retaguardia va a quedar como retaguardia trasera, mano trasera, retaguardia avanza hasta que caiga estuas. Canalizada con el radio del muchacho de la inteligencia que va avanzando.
Caught off guard by the surprise attack, the Sandinistas retreated, even though they outnumbered the Mosquitoes 2-1.
About 1:30 in the morning or something like that, we heard some shots fired. And, everybody jumped down on the floor out of their beds. We waited in the church until things quieted down. We went out and found out that the people were leaving Francis Sirpi. They had an escort of, there must have been more than 100 Miskito Militia men. And they were rounding up the people and facilitating their leaving. A lot of them left in the middle of the night and started walking. The bishop and I, when we saw what options were open to us, and the fear of perhaps not coming out of the situation alive if we waited for the Sandinista army to come in and maybe not knowing what to expect would bomb the town or whatever, and we might be killed, we decided to go with the people. The people needed us. They were setting out on a really difficult and trying journey, and we decided to stick with them. It was a free choice. No one forced us to make that choice. We were given freedom in that respect. We set out on this journey, and we've been, it's been hard, it's been difficult for everybody. There's been a lot of marvelous things happening among the people themselves, and the Mosquito Contras, as they're called, really showed extraordinary love and interest in their own people, the way they supported them and helped them and urged them along and tried to make things as easy as possible for them. A lot of the older people had to be carried. One man broke his foot practically in the beginning of the trip and had to be carried the rest of the way. But all sorts of old women and old men too had to be carried on the backs of others, or in hammocks, or in whatever way they could possibly be carried on the back of people. The militia that accompanied us had their radios, of course, and they heard that notice had been sent out internationally that they had abducted us by force and had killed us. Well, that was entirely untrue, because, as I said before, we came voluntarily, and there was no show of malice or any sort of disrespect for us. Everything was not only for us as priests and the other two deacons, but for the whole people as a whole. There was just an extraordinary consideration for everybody.
Meanwhile, the Sandinistas were getting reinforcements and regrouping in order to pursue the people, so some Miskito guerrillas stayed behind to slow them down with a rear guard ambush.
Well, we heard too, by listening to the radio, reports by the Sandinistas themselves that we're sending out soldiers to follow us, and their intention was to bring back the bishop and I dead, so that they could show the world that the Miskito militia had killed us and after they abducted us, which was entirely untrue. And we were molested during the whole trip by groups of Sandinistas that tried to recapture the people and perhaps more especially to capture the bishop and I and the deacons.